What's up, dudes? Welcome back to the first round of playoffs of the KCBL. We are once again playing our friend Gliscor Guy. Gliscor Guy, that's what GG stands for, I'm pretty sure. Won't recap his team too much, same as the last video, but I will explain a little bit more of the threats that I'm expecting, since we didn't really touch on that in the last one, since it was a fun game, and we'll take it from there. So he does have the low punny, which I'm almost totally certain is coming, because the only I've got two things that can really address it, and that's Mesprit and Landorus. Landorus, of course, can intimidate it, but it will almost certainly be packing Ice Punch, as low punnies always do, specifically for Landorus. He's got the Mew, which is actually probably the biggest threat to my team. I don't really know if he's going to set up physically or specially. My hunch would be special, because it has a really good speed tier versus my team. I don't have a whole lot over base 100 besides, I want to say, Noivern. So Mew can actually be... Landorus is close, so he still has to run like Timid if he does, but yeah, Mew's going to be a threat. Mimikyu, of course, can also be a threat, although not as big of one, because I do have stuff like Scizor and Landorus, and Lycanroc Dusk, probably not coming. I don't think it's very good versus me. I've got a ton of answers for it. Even though it does have coverage for some of my answers, I think you lose that trade every time. Registeel, Gligar, and Tangela has big fat. A Violite plus Registeel Core. Volcanion, Sneasel, Raichu, and Haxorus. Lots of setup opportunities. Haxorus, Raichu, Sneasel, even Gligar, Lycanroc, Mimikyu, Mew, Lopunny. All those things can either power up Punch, Sword Stance, or Nasty Plot. So he's got a lot of ways to break through the fat of my team, which is kind of my advantage in this matchup. My team is a bit fatter than his, aside from these three in the middle here, Registeel, Gligar, and Tangela. But I think we can still outbulk him, because we do have Unaware Clefable. Lil Cletus going to do her thing. And one of the things I'm also really worried about is Volcanion, because I don't have a switch into Volcanion. Obviously, Roserade can take Steam Eruptions, but it can't take the Flamethrowers after. So Melodic is really the only Pokemon I have to take this on. And he could very easily be running Bloom Doom with Z Solar Beam, which would pretty much just nuke Melodic. I think I can live one from full sometimes, but not always. So it's definitely a threat that I'm concerned with. Typically, he runs, I think, Substitute and or Toxic on this Pokemon. So I'm expecting Toxic. You'll see in the team builder how I prepared for this. As usual, Landorus is going to be an offensive Pokemon for me. Just a standard Dual Dance, Earthquake, Fly. I want to save that Z move for either Tangela or Gligar, because obviously those two are immune to Earthquake. If he brings both, I'll be a little bit surprised. I actually don't think Tangela is that good against me, because I do have some strong special attackers and kind of gets Roserade in for free. Clefable can set up on it. It's a little bit of a liability for my team. So would be surprised to see it here. Gligar, however, I think has to come. I think he has to bring Defogs, because it's a little bit easier for me to hazard stack him than him to me, because I have a lot more options for it. But anyway, Z-Fly Landorus should be able to break through. Once I Rock Polish up, it almost certainly starts claiming KOs, because the things that it doesn't KO, it gets a Sword Stance on. And if he does let me get the Sword Stance up, then it's pretty much good game after that. I've got Melodic, of course. We did talk about the Volcanion. We have HP Rock, because one of the things that I had HP Ground originally, and after talking with my buddy Black, we noticed that if he brought Air Balloon Volcanion, which sounds crazy, but it would actually be decent in this game, particularly because of Landorus and Camerupt, that we would definitely want the HP Rock, so we weren't walled by it and to pop the balloon. So obviously Air Balloon would have been a lot more manageable than Bloom Doom, but I couldn't do anything back to it without HP Rock. So HP Rock it is. It also stops some of the mind games between Gligar coming in, since I can always get damage on it. Like, he might think, oh, he's HP Ground, I can switch into Gligar, and he really can't, because then I just get a Scald afterwards. And I really don't ever have to protect, because Melodic beats both of those. Do have Unaware Clef, like we talked about. I have to. There's just too many setup options. Even Haxorus with Poison Jab and stuff is really dangerous. Could be Z Poison Jab, and then I'd be in a lot of trouble too. But I can always revenge it, because I think I might even take one Z Poison Jab. I'm not sure. But I do think Clefable pressures a lot of switches, so we're going to be putting the Stealth Rock on here and the Calm Mind just in case like we need it late game to break through stuff. Thought about HP Ground for like Registeel or something, but it really doesn't do anything without Calm Mind anyway, so figured I would rely on other things to take care of Registeel, which we'll get to in a second. Next up we have Rocky Helmet Scizor, partly because I really do expect Sneasel to come. I think Landorus is too much of a threat to not have multiple responses for it. If he doesn't bring Sneasel with Ice Shard and I do get a Rock Polish and a Swords Dance, it really is over at that point. So he kind of needs that failsafe. Bullet Punch, U-Turn, and Roost. Roost for longevity. I do think Swords Dance and Bullet Punch, as you can see, we have the right ability this week. I do think Swords Dance and Bullet Punch could be incredibly useful in this game. Sweeping late. Obviously, we're a little bit walled by the Registeel, but I could Swords Dance and U-Turn out into the next Pokemon, which is not necessarily a counter, but kind of a counter, and that's Roserade. We have Black Sludge with Natural Cure, Toxic Spikes, Hidden Power Ground for the Roserade. In hindsight, HP Fire would have been pretty cool, but I also wanted to hit the Volcanion because it's such a problem. Venoshock and Synthesis. I felt if he didn't bring Gligar, it would be pretty easy to keep Toxic Spikes up and chip away the team for Landorus. And honestly, maybe even stall out the team because I do have Melodic and Clefable and Scizor, which make a pretty formidable defensive core that's very difficult for him to break. Venoshock, of course, does quite a bit more damage once things are poisoned. And Synthesis because I really want to keep this mon healthy. One of the things I noticed is that I'm also a bit weak to Raichu. So I needed to be spatially and physically bulky. As you can see from the spread here, we do have 140 in defense and 96 calm nature. So 20 speed, can't remember what it's for. I'm sure it's actually important because I wouldn't put 20 in if it didn't take me somewhere. But yeah, this Pokemon will basically be there for Raichu, possibly to take Steam Eruptions from Volcanion and be like a mid-ground play for both of them, and to take on Registeel and get up Toxic Spikes. And Tangela, because, Venoshock. And finally, we have Rocky Helmet Marley. I almost put Stealth Rocks on this Pokemon because I felt it was a very easy time to set up rocks with this because it is fast enough that it's not as susceptible to taunt. But one of the things I found is that I really want to come in on low punny. That's really what he's here for, to come in on low punny, get some chip damage off, put him in range of like Bullet Punch or Moonblast or something like that. I am probably guessing he wouldn't want to stay in. He might sub up, which I have Psychic to break the sub. And if he, for some reason, decides to stay in, I can Thunder Wave it and make it pretty manageable for most of the team to deal with. It also helps me deal with Mew, which could be a problem if I do get to Thunder Wave it, as it does seem like the most likely switch in. And if he does bring in the Gligar to take the Thunder Wave, I have Ice Beam to hit it. So I expect Marley to actually play a pretty critical role in this game. That's why I have this specific moveset. Did want rocks, but I really needed all of these things. If I was going to drop anything, I could have dropped U-Turn, but I didn't. If I Thunder Waved something that I didn't want to stay in on, like the Mew, I can just U-Turn out on it. So that set is very specific. I really felt that I needed those 4 exact moves in order for this to work. So without further ado, we're going to hop into the battle. I don't like the light color scheme. Let's make it dark. Here we go. Hop right into the battle. We're on the wrong side, but we'll get it right in just a second. He does have the Gligar as expected. Raichu, not surprising. Lopunny, we knew he was coming. Registeel. Registeel was somewhat of a surprise, but I understood why he would bring it. Black and I expressed like there might be situations that he wouldn't want to bring it because I do have some pretty powerful ground types, and really he doesn't want to take a whole lot of anything from my team because Roserade could have Technician, but it could be there for Clefable and Scizor, which are Pokemon that I tend to bring quite often. Mew, of course, and Volcanion. So really no surprises here. Pretty much everything we expected. But as far as the sets go, we saw he's capable of coming up with some pretty good heat as he did in the last battle. So let's just hop right into it and see what happens. I lead with Roserade because I want to get up the T-Spike early. He leads with Raichu, which is excellent for me. This is one of my ways of dealing with it. And he goes right for the Volt Switch. Now, that 9% is actually important. That did a lot less than I thought it was going to. Sorry for pausing it on turn 1, guys. The Volt Switch did a lot less than I was going to. So when I put it into the calcs, in order for him to do that little damage to this specific Roserade, I'm pretty sure he had to be less than 16 or 20 special attack invested and timid. So almost no special attack, which was surprising to me because I don't think HPI's KOs offensive Landorus from that. I didn't run the calc because I didn't have to at that point. Really didn't see a situation in which I would stay in on Raichu and try to set up. But yeah, that damage was incredibly low to me. Very surprised to see Volt Switch doing that little. So he goes out into Mew, and I get the T-Spike up. He's kind of wise to get it in before I actually got the T-Spike up, but it's also a Psychic type to deal with me, obviously. And he actually lost a game. His only loss this whole season, besides the Week 7 one we gave him, which I don't know if you count that because it was just a fun game anyway, but his only loss besides that was against Black, and one of the issues he had was with T-Spike, so he learned from that mistake. He did bring Gligar, and he's going to be able to defog. I go into Clefable expecting the double, and he does not. He stays in and defogs. I thought he might realize the threat Clefable presents at this point, hence the double, but he just thought defogging was more important, I guess. So I double out now into Scizor, not expecting him to stay in. He goes for the Earthquake, which wouldn't have done much. As you can remember, we are very physically bulky. And he U-turns out, taking some nice Rocky Helmet chip. Goes into Volcanion. I really wanted to U-turn there and be aggressive, but I really didn't think I had to because I felt like I had counterplayed to the Volcanion. In fact, I might have been able to U-turn there. Wait, did I have speed in Scizor? I didn't have enough speed in Scizor to outrun. I should have, that would have been a cool thing to do, to have enough speed to outrun 0 speed Volcanion if I wanted to risk that, which I almost did, because one thing I've noticed that he runs Toxic Volcanion pretty much every week, it seems like. It's either some combination of Toxic or Sub or something like that, so I was kind of expecting that, and that's exactly what happened, which is also why we're running the refresh on Melodic, because we really need to stay healthy for this. But because, like I said, one of the big threats is if he's Bloom Doom, and I don't know what item he is at this point, I have to scout for that Z move, so I go into Roserade. If he has it, I assume he'll go for it right there. Instead, he doubles out, so that tells me he's probably not Bloom Doom. Roserade is one of my countermeasures for Registeel, so I'm pretty excited for that, and I just go straight for the T-Spikes. He's going to Gligar to defog, and I think, well, if he plays this wrong, like let's say he tries to Ice Fang me after an Intimidate, I can Rock Polish and Swords Dance up here. So I tried to go for that. I do get the Rock Polish. He is wise to not stay in and just U-turn out. He goes right into Mew. Now, if this is an offensive Mew, let's go back. Oh, I'm sorry. So if it is an offensive Mew, I can KO it with Supersonic Sky Strike, but I do want to try to save it for that Gligar if possible, because Gligar is going to be really difficult for me to... The combination of Gligar and Registeel is going to be difficult for me to break with Landorus. Otherwise, I could pretty much just win with Landorus after Rock Polish and taking this out. It could also be physically defensive, and that would be very problematic for Landorus. So didn't want to risk that. I decided to go into Clefable as he Ice Beams, doing 21%. Not bad damage. Not really significant either. So maybe he is a little bulky. He goes for the taunt, so I'm not able to get up rocks, unfortunately. So taunt Mew is a pretty solid bring there, because that would have been a problem for him. He goes out into Volcanion, which I'm seeing is becoming more and more of a problem. It's kind of his catch-all, but I decided to throw off a Moonblast anyway because of this, specifically because of this chance, and I don't know for sure that he's going to switch out. Luckily for me, he did, and I did get the special attack drop, which makes coming in on it significantly easier with Melodic. And that's going to give me a turn to refresh and possibly recover as he does come into Raichu. Now, because, remember, this is what we saw earlier with the Volt Switch damage on Roserade is going to play an effect here, because based on my calculations, that Raichu spread, in order for it to do that little damage to Roserade, should not have been able to do more than 47% to Melodic, which means Melodic could 1v1 that Raichu, in theory. So I decide that I'm going to stay in... Oh, nope, that's later. Sorry, I just ruined something. I decided to go into Roserade because that's a mid-ground play. He goes for Hidden Power Ice, expecting the Landorus. It's not doing very much here, and I really want to get that T-Spike up, so I go for it. And the plan here, of course, is to recover this turn since I know I'm not taking too much from HP Ice. He packs the Heat Natural Gift. It's a fire move, probably for Scizor, I think. Very powerful tech. Takes out Roserade, which is unfortunate because once he gets rid of that T-Spike, it's gone for good. And that T-Spike would be really useful for Lopunny and Volcanion in particular. Also the Raichu and the Mew, but especially those two. Those are kind of the more frustrating Pokemon for me to deal with right now. I go out into Clefable. Oops. So professional. I go out into Clefable. Don't take too much from the Volt Switch, just 24%, as he's going to go right out into Gligar. I don't agree with this play. Yeah, he wants to pressure the defog, but if I'm an offensive Clefable, which I could very well be, you've seen Stealth Rock, you've seen Moonblast, and I don't think you've seen Calm Mind yet, then, yeah, Gligar's setup fodder, and if I have HP Ground, there's a good chance you just lose the game right there. So I don't agree with that play, but he is adamant about keeping those hazards away. Goes for expecting the defog. I go into Melodic, who I did make competitive specifically because I wanted to punish defogs. And now I'm in a really good position because I can Steam Eruption pretty freely. Even if he goes into Volcanion, he's going into this is my dedicated answer to this Pokemon. So he's doing me favors here. My HP Rock is going to be a 2-hit KO. He goes for Toxic. And if I wanted, I could go for an HP Rock here. That would be a fine play. But he does double out into Gligar, expecting it to be HP Ground. I just go for the Refresh because there's really no reason not to, and it's basically a free turn of healing. And again, because I can 2-hit KO it with the HP Rock, I can just Scald freely because even if he comes in and gets the 25% or whatever, I'm still going to be able to put him out. So this +2 Melodic is actually putting in a lot of work here. He goes for the Toxic once again. I honestly don't understand why he was so adamant about the Toxics. It kind of surprises me because I showed Refresh, and even if he uses every single Toxic on both of these Pokemon, I can always Refresh it off because Refresh has exactly twice as many PP as Toxic. So as soon as he misses a Toxic, I already have more. So I don't understand the play there. It kind of just dragged the battle out a little bit more, but maybe he was hoping that I would see that he was stubborn and give up on it, but I can't, because I need this Pokemon healthy to take on Volcanion. And the plus side is, because Melodic is so physically bulky, physically invested as well, if I am able to keep it healthy after I take out Volcanion, I can also use it, of course, to take out the Registeel as it just did, and the Gligar, and potentially the Raichu when we talked about the Calcs, but also the Lopunny. So Melodic's going to be a real problem for him, and I decided to recover off the damage because, like I mentioned earlier, based on the calculations that I saw, this Raichu should not have been capable of doing more than 47%, maybe 47.5% max to this Melodic. And as you can see, that roll, we'll do it again. As you can see, that last roll that happened did 54%. So I'm not sure what's going on with the calc. There's no way he could have done that little 2 Roserade and done this much to Melodic. If he was Expert Belt, it would have been possible. But we saw already he was Natural Gift. I think Ganlonberry is the fire one. I honestly can't remember. But we saw he was Natural Gift, so we know he's not Expert Belt. So I don't really understand what's going on here. I should have been able to 1v1 this Pokemon, and I do decide to get some chip damage off with a. Oh wait, super effective. That's weird. That said super effective, right? I don't know what happened there. Obviously it had to be ground for that to take, but I was rock specific. Ooh, that was a close call. It's a good thing he didn't bring. Good thing he didn't bring Air Balloon Volcanion. Does a ton of damage there. He's gonna go for the Thunderbolt on Scizor, but he's also in range of Bullet Punch. So this plan worked out okay. We did take care of Raichu, and that's gonna make Landers surprisingly, it's gonna make Landers' job a little bit easier. I do decide to sack Scizor in case he decides to go for a Toxic. I could just U-turn out into get that slow U-turn into Melodic, and this is a free recover for me. Again, this Pokemon always beats the Volcanion since we know his set, and he again decides to Toxic. I guess you could kind of make the case that, well, it forces me to refresh and gives him a turn of leftovers, but because I have the right hidden power, ground or rock would have worked. I'm able to beat him 1v1 even after the leftovers recovery. It's just going to take longer. So, in fact, the longer it goes, the more crits I'm likely to snag on him. So I really don't understand. I'd be curious to. We talked about it a little bit afterwards, but I'd be curious to see why he chose to do that specifically. Mew's going to cause a little bit of problems for Clefable here because of that taunt. Again, really excellent bring on him. I'm just going for the Moonblast because I don't want to weaken anything else. I need Landorus. Okay, so Landorus is kind of my win con. If I Rock Polish up at this point, it becomes considerably easier to win because remember, I can KO Mew, especially now that it's got some chip on it. Gligar is going to be a little annoying, but it gives me free sword stances. But the main thing is that he has no flying resist. So once I get a Rock Polish up, I can fly very freely, and nothing is going to really threaten me since I get super effective damage on this. If Volcanion switches in, it dies to Earthquake after. And if Gligar comes back in on the Earthquake, then I can just fly again, so on and so forth. So I don't want to sack that. Melodic I need for the Volcanion, because Volcanion can still come in. In fact, I'm surprised it didn't come in on Clefable at this point, but maybe he didn't want to risk the special attack drops. And Mesprit I need, of course, for the Lopunny, because Landorus can't necessarily set up on Lopunny. It could. If he's adamant, it might, which it very well could be, because he might have not expected, like, he might have been like, yeah, Noivern's the only thing that comes close. And I think Noivern would outrun if Noivern was timid and Lopunny was adamant, but again, he probably didn't think I would bring it at all. So I don't really want to lose anything. Clefable, unfortunately, is the most expendable member of the team at this point. And luckily for me, the taunt wears off. So I decide, expecting him to go for taunt, and because he's at -2 special attack, that Melodic can probably take this on pretty effectively. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sit here and go for a Scald to just try to get some chip on this. He goes into Volcanion. There's no need for me to predict Volcanion at this point. Like, I want Melodic in versus Volcanion. So if he's willing to bring it in, this is a trade that I'm absolutely willing to make because Melodic is here specifically for this Pokemon. It'd be nice to have it for the Lopunny too, but more important is Mesprit and Clefable for taking that on. And Clefable, of course, is designated for the Mew at this point. So surprisingly, he goes into Lopunny on Melodic, which could possibly take it on, but I do have a designated counter, and I would rather keep Melodic healthy for the Volcanion. He goes for that powerful high jump kick, getting some nice Rocky Helmet chip. The whole plan was to just Thunder Wave. If he wants to sub, I can Psychic afterwards. But him getting his Mew Thunder Wave, to me, represented what could very easily be the end of the game. Obviously, it depends on certain things, but him being paralyzed means Clefable can now get Calm Minds off. It can heal up. Things it couldn't do before when Mew was healthy. So that's actually really awesome for me. I'm going to go ahead and Moonlight up just to get my health back. I think that's a little more important for helping taking on the Mew. And at this point, I'm pretty free to either, I could click Rocks or I could click Moonblast. I decide to just go for the Moonblast because I don't want to deal with this Mew anymore. He goes for the Soft Boiled, which is annoying, but I know if I keep clicking Moonblast, I should get special attack drops, which gives other teammates the opportunity. There's one, which gives other teammates the opportunity to help take on this Mew a little better. I'm going to go for another one. He can either recover or attack me. He does get fully paralyzed on the turn that my taunt wears off, so at this point I'm able to Calm Mind, which is awesome for me. He could go into Volcanion, which I think would probably be his best play at this point, and he decides to Soft Boil instead, which gives me another Calm Mind. And he knows my whole set at this point, so I really don't understand staying into taunt there when Volcanion was always your play. But I suppose because I am unaware, I don't know. I think Volcanion has to be your play because you are packing the Sludge Bomb, and I don't know how much damage it does to +2 Spit F, but it probably 2 at KOs, I would imagine, or at least 3 at KOs, and you have to, otherwise Clef just beats you at this point. But he does sack the Mew, which is amazing for me. That means I have 2 responses to Lopunny, and now Clefable and Landorus both set up on Gligar. So again, Mew getting paralyzed, and especially him giving it up, was pretty much the end of the game. I go into Melodic because I just want to play it safe. I could be aggressive and try to go into Landorus on like a predicted Toxic or a Sludge Bomb and try to Earthquake my way through the game. But I didn't really feel it was worth it because he might fish for burns and stuff like that, which would actually be really good if he got a burn on Melodic. Good for me, so I wouldn't have to deal with these Toxics and refreshes. Honestly, this isn't the most exciting thing. I'll skip a couple turns here. It's just going to be a refresh. And I actually I actually refreshed on a sludge bomb poison, not really paying attention at this point because I'm on autopilot. Like I know how this is supposed to play out, and he got a sludge bomb poison that I refreshed, which I actually would have wanted to keep, even though I'm not Marvel scale, just to annoy. Like the toxic were just so annoying at this point. Again, I have way more refreshes than he has toxic, so I really don't understand the thought behind it. But he finally does get another sludge bomb poison, which is cool for me. I can recover up and then just start wearing this thing down, as you can see. Sorry. He goes into low punny. He actually does pack the substitute, kind of like I was expecting. A little surprised he didn't go for it earlier. And when the Mew got thunder waved in particular. But he's going to take damage. I'm going to get that psychic off. If he did not break through the paralysis, if Marley did not break through the paralysis, Clefable easily took this thing on, so it wasn't that big of a deal. If I did get fully paired, we were in a great position at that point to just win the game. So Clefable at this point is going to Moonblast up. Didn't want to risk like any last resort shenanigans, because I think that would have been 2KO at this point maybe. Would have been surprised to see it without Ice Punch, given the Landers, but Gliscor coming in means I can set up pretty freely. I think I know its whole set. I know it's not toxic at this point, so I think I need 3 Calm Minds to either 2-hit KO or one shot or something. But anyway, I have no reason not to go for my 3rd Calm Mind here, then heal up and click 2 Moonblast and win. So as so many other of my games have ended before, it's with Cletus, with all these boosts, standing tall in front of my opponent, ready to sweep the game. So that is going to be a GG to my friend Gliscor Guy. He had a great season. He was, prior to going into our game, he only had 1 loss to the same guy I lost to, of course, Black. And he had 1 differential higher than me. So he had a heck of a season. I want to say congratulations to you, buddy, for putting together a great season and giving me a heck of a game here. This was both of our games. The first one was like very fun and exciting because of all the heat. And then this one, of course, just being hotly contested. So thanks again for that. And thanks to you guys for watching. I'm sure this is going to be a longer video because there's so much to break down in this. But I felt it was worth it because there's a lot to unpack here, like with the Z moves, scouting for it, the execution of the game plan. I think you can learn a lot from. The builds in particular as well made a lot of sense. Like Unaware Clefable had to be Calm Mind, like why you would sacrifice coverage for Registeel and how we had other responses for it. I think there's a lot of good things to unpack with this game. We had a great game plan, stuck to it, and everything worked out pretty much just as I expected, with the exception of that tricky tricky natural gift Raichu. That definitely made things a little more difficult. So again, hats off to my opponent. Next week, I believe we are playing Black again. I don't think his team has changed at all, and I definitely brought my best stuff against him the first time because I wanted to make sure that I was in position to make playoffs. And I guess I really didn't have to, but you guys know me. I'm not going to throw a game. Even the game where we're having fun, I'm bringing stuff that I think is going to win, even if it's like very risky and probably not the best, but it was fun and it had a chance to win, so I had to do it. So hopefully we can keep this momentum riding high going into the playoffs and finally unseat Black. We've played him 3 times over the years, and I think he's beaten me every single time, so it'd be really nice to notch a W over him in this one. So we shall see how that one unfolds, so you'll have to stick around for that. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.